Hello, welcome everybody to an awesome and exciting time. We're going to have a great time. By the way, this is our very first time going at this, so this is going to be great, and you guys are going to love this. Remember, you want to check this out. This is going to be weekly. We are going to do this every single week.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to do this every single week. We're going to have this raw, unscripted conversation about personal development, about goals, about whys, about vision, about imposter syndrome, about some challenges that we're facing, personal. And we're just going to lay it all out there because we know that in our transparency, there's real value.
Yeah, that's correct. Value is where it starts. And so, just a little bit about us. We're going to talk, let you know where we're coming from so you know that we are able to help you out and a little bit about what we do. We have different programs. Depending on where you're at and what you're doing, we can accommodate for that. Both Will and I and several other coaches, what we do is we always start out with what's called a strategy session, something where we can get to know you. So let's start off by getting to know us, the real us, right? Will the real David please stand up? Will the real Will please stand up? So first of all, with me, I have been coaching since, I've been coaching all my life, but officially since 1997, and it has been fun. It's been exciting, and I'll tell you something. Nothing enlightens me better than when I'm talking to somebody and they get that aha moment, that I've got it. When the spark lights up, and that's the moment that is just the greatest time. And so, that's what we look for.
Yeah, that aha moment, that light bulb moment, that moment of clarity that we get to help facilitate. You know, talk a little bit about your own aha moment, David, when you just had that moment of clarity. Perhaps it was with a coach, perhaps it was with somebody that you felt safe with. There was trust, the walls were down, you just felt like you could be yourself. And I think that that's where it really starts because if we've got our walls up, if we feel uncomfortable, if we feel judged, right, then we're not gonna ever have that aha moment. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your aha moment. It doesn't have to be a in particular one, maybe just the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, and I think, one of the ones that come to my mind, it's a very powerful, one of the first ones getting going. So I was called as, several different positions through, but I was called as a leader of leaders and building people up. And it's like, well, what does that look like? And as I'm talking and, talking with a person trying to figure out what's going on, it's like, well, you've been a person that's guided the person leading and helping them out. You've always supported them, been their backbone. So what would it look like if you did that on a greater scale? What if you actually helped somebody get into that position where they're leading? And it didn't really dawn on me at that moment, but I was thinking, that's powerful. I wonder what that would look like. And one of my favorite movies is Star Wars. So picture this. I am Yoda, and the person, Luke Skywalker, comes to me looking for that path, that direction, and they are getting built up to the position that lets them take full charge to be the champion that they are. When they told me that, connecting to a movie that I know very well, I was like, that's it. That's exactly it. So let me ask you, Will, what was a big yaha moment for you?
Yeah, and I love the story. I love the illustration of Star Wars and by the way, it's aha moment, not yaha moment. But we'll give you a pass, David, because we love you. You're awesome. But yeah, yeah, and the guide is a real selfless role because Yoda didn't spend a lot of time talking about himself, did he? It was the focus, the direction, the trajectory was always on the hero, right? So it's a selfless role. I think it goes hand in hand with the call as us Christians have. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So where's the focus in that call, right? I think the focus is on God and on others. So answering that call for me has been in collaboration with the great commandment that Jesus laid out there in the Gospels. The first aha moment, not yaha moment, that comes to mind for me is a recent one. We were actually on the phone. We were talking about this podcast, talking about reaching you guys, and just how we can facilitate more and more and more transformation. We've got to get the word out there. We've got to put ourselves in a place of vulnerability, talk about our own issues, our own problems, our own challenges, our own whys, our own visions. And then that will hopefully motivate you guys to step up to the plate and say, you know what? I want some of that.
That really brings that really brings joy, that motivation, um, that lightning. And so one of the things that I love doing, and I love finding out your why. And so some people, it gets irritating. Matter of fact, I was just with a client, matter of fact, about an hour and a half ago. And it was funny because I do what's called y to the power of seven, and I'll explain that in a minute. But pretty much it's very simple. We started going. He had no why. I mean, his why was definitely not a why. And so I asked him, I says, well, how did you get this as your why? And he described as, I understand where you're coming from, but why are you actually here? What do you actually want? And then he actually came up with a why. And I'm like, okay, that's a good start. Now, why do you want that? And as we got dug in deeper, it's like, cool, there's your, but then right after he says that, he went right to a negative. Well, if that could happen, well, you're right. It'll never happen. You gotta be purposeful with it. If this is your why, you want it to break through the obstacle. And this is the power behind the why. I want to do this. And an obstacle comes up. You're not going to be strong enough. You're going to fail. But if your why is strong enough, I have to do this because if I don't, this is going to happen. Then when your obstacle comes through, you're going to push right through. Okay. And so that's why starting off with your why to make sure it's strong. Everybody knows why they're here today. Why did you come to this podcast? Probably because you heard about it and you wanted to check it out. So you came to check it out. But if your why is strong enough, no matter what obstacle comes through, you're going to power right through that.
I really like that story because it's something I think we can all relate to. When we have that vision or those goals, and then especially when we air them, when we communicate them to anybody, it's almost immediate, especially in the beginning, when that imposter syndrome like rears its ugly head, right? And then we're so inclined, many of us, to agree with it. So I find it very interesting. You asked your client, okay, what's your why? And then he says something brilliant, something beautiful, something why worthy, but then he jumps right to the negative. And I don't think he's unusual. I think, like I said before, it's something very common. And it really takes in my own unique perspective, in my own experience, it's taken large amounts of intentionality to one recognize that voice of imposter syndrome that sounds a lot like this. You know, you're never going to be worthy. You're not good enough. You never will be. You might as well just accept the fact that you're not good enough and you never will be. Like it's pretty intense, especially when we are striving and trying to do well and are. You know, just it's almost like it gets louder and it gets more intense and it causes us to dig our heels deeper. And that's why that why is so important. Because if that why is strong enough, like you said, David, we get to persevere and just bull over the obstacles as they come. And when we surround ourselves with other people who also have that powerful why, look out, look out, because now we're not in this alone. Like, we're in this together. It reminds me of the quote. Can't quite remember who it's by. Maybe you can help me out, David. If not, it's okay. It still illustrates the same point. You surround yourself with 5 successful men regularly. You'll be the sixth.
That's powerful. I don't know where that came from, but that is powerful. That's right on point. And it's always great um, when you conquer and you find that because the people that you hang around with the most is what's going to come out of you. You pick your best friends, and the top three best friends, you probably have a little bit of each of them in you. They have a running joke. Um, you know how you can tell the difference between your friend and your best friend?
I'm going to take a stab at it. But I'm gonna, and there's the imposter syndrome. You're gonna get it wrong. You might as well not even try. It's like, and even now I'm having to persevere through, and I haven't heard it before, so that's why I say I'm probably gonna get it wrong. It's not like a memorization thing. Uh, you know how they can tell a difference between your best friend and your friend? You act more like your best friend.
So when you get in trouble, um, your friend will come and bail you out, but your best friend is right there in jail with you. And it's a good point that, a lot of times, the more you stick around somebody, you're going to become like them. You say, well, I'm stronger than them. They won't rub off on me. I'm going to rub off on them. But in reality, that doesn't happen. Matter of fact, get into just about any relationship, and the guy is going to say, well, I'm going to change the woman. And the woman is going to say, I'm going to change the guy. Right? They both say they're going to change each other. However, in reality, what happens? They both change because one wants to please the other and the other wants to please the other. So they're both trying to please each other and they're both changing. So we rub off as we're around them.
Absolutely, absolutely, great point, brother. That's awesome. Um, it reminds me of Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so does a man sharpen the countenance or the facial expression of his friend. And, it goes with a woman, too. I don't think it's just about men there. And I think it's another really good reason why we should choose our friends wisely. It's like, do I want to hang around people that by comparison I feel really good about myself? Like, do I have really low self esteem where I just want to surround myself with people that I think are less than, right? So that I have this bolstered ego or something like that, Or do I want to hang around people that will challenge me, people that I'm looking up to, that I respect, that actually respect me? Uh, And there is a certain challenging element to that. I mean, you sit down in a room with people with powerful whys with goals, and we're talking about different challenges and like things that we're going through, and we don't come to the table with anything. We're pulling that group down. And that is a stark realization that I had actually not too long ago. That, hey, I'm pulling some people down in my life. I need to step things up. And instead of just being a voice of encouragement only, I need to be leading by example as a servant leader and with my day to day actions. It's like every moment of this life is recorded, not just when we hit the record button. Praise God. God is up there with the rest of the heavenly host cheering us on, baby. Hey, I want to lean into that. And I want to say, okay, we are on the right side of the battle line. Like we get to accept that power from on high, take it up, and execute. Like, what's our excuse? What's holding us back?
So what's holding us back? I think the biggest thing that holds us back is our own mind. Because we love to get in there and say, like you said, the imposter syndrome. We love to say, well, no, I can't do that. Well, possibly, maybe, uh, if it might happen, it's a fluke if it does. You know, our own doubt gets in there all the time. But if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, we can move that mountain. And the funny thing about that seed, it's the smallest seed in the world, smaller than a grain of sand, yet it grows up to be the largest tree. It's powerful how that is. And, it's our own mind that either gives it to us or takes it. Your mouth is a valuable weapon. It brings curses and blessings. Our mind, our mouth speaks from. So we think it, then we say it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm just reading in the comment section here. Influence each other by Kissamissy. I love that name, by the way. It's a pleasure to have you here. Absolutely, be an example. Sometimes knowledge, for sure. Wow. And the birds will come and nest in its branches. That's how the rest of that is finished out. That faith is small as a mustard seed, like you said, grows into one of the largest trees, and the birds will come and nest in its branches. Uh, what does that mean to you? The birds will come and nest in its branches.
So as I think about that, it really makes me think. You know how in this world, when you are up here, people want to pull you down. However, if you're up here and there's people above you, they don't want to pull you down, they want to bring you up. So people are either lifting or pulling you, and you're going through that shift. And it's like the branches are the covering that covers the ground. They've been built up, they're at a certain level. They could be higher, they could be lower, they're at a good, decent level, but you constantly have things pulling them down. The animals on the earth trying to, either get their fruit, get whatever they got on the branches. You have things trying to lift them up. The birds that come try to take stuff off is lifting them up. So you have the branches going up and down, plus by the wind. So I kind of see it kind of like how the world does us. They either take you down if they're below you, or they take you up if they're above you.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point, and to achieve that balance, right, in within community of um, being out in the witness field, growing the body of Christ. I think that that would be a prime example of what you're saying. Of if we stay there too long, we're going to be pulled down. Like there was a reason Jesus went to seek alone time with the Father after like hours and hours and hours of ministry, healing the sick and feeding people, and so he was being pulled at. It says Jesus sat with sinners; he didn't sin with them. Well, I think the reason it says that is it illustrates it that you know if you sit with sinners long enough, you're going to start to become you know like them and start to adopt their habits. Say if you hang around a smoker, that's a prime example. If you hang around a smoker long enough, you're going to be smoking. And good luck trying to quit smoking around another smoker. I mean, just next to impossible. And then, you know, hanging around those people that really bring you up, and then that's its own battle. It's like who wants to be in either one of those states for too long? And then finding those people who are, you know, like your people, like the ones that you can just talk with plainly. You're not necessarily pulled down or lifted up. Like you are next to an even playing ground with them. I think to have like those three tiers and finding the balance between all of those three tiers is a key to leading a successful life. What are your thoughts on that, David? I'm interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because, like, it's like I had to cut out pork. And speaking of the why, it was strong enough because if I want to keep my legs, I'll cut out pork. So that was strong enough. Now, I used to eat a plate like this, piled this high of bacon. And boy, did I love it. I'd eat that about 3, 4 times a week. And I mean, I told some people that I have to cut out pork. Nobody wanted to support me. One guy says, I know how much you eat. You can't cut it out. One lady says, you know what? If you want to cut it out, good, go for it. Then she would make a bacon sandwich, open it up, and blow it in my face. So I needed to cut out pork, and I did not have people around me that would support me. Instead, I had people that wanted to bring me back. Ah, you can keep going. And so my will was strong enough to go through that because I wanted to keep my legs. So I was going to make sure that it happened. After it happened, and a month down the road, one of the people was like, "Well, it's just a phase. You'll go back." 3 months down the road, well, you're eating healthy now. That's a different story, you know. So the thing is they started to come back around and be like, "Okay, you know what? I'll support you because I see that I'm not going to pull you down, so I might as well support you." And finding that balance is always fun because do we allow ourselves to stick around it and possibly pull us down? Or do we rise up to the occasion where we can possibly pull them? Where is our support mainly? What kind of support are we getting? Is it the couple people that's pulling us back, but we got tons of people supporting us? That our support is stronger to overpower this? Or do we have more pulling us down and only a few supporting us? Maybe we need to switch environments. Because we want to make sure we're in the environment that's going to help us. What do you think of that?
I think it's brilliant. I love your muscular mind here. So, Paul talked about being a master builder, and I think it coincides so well with this. It's like, are the words coming out of our mouth lifting people up? Are they encouraging? Are they life giving? Are they reassuring? Are they uh, helpful? Right? Or are we just saying the first thing that comes to mind without even really thinking, like, what does this person need to hear? Or it's maybe instead of that, because we might not know, It's like, what would I want to hear, right? What would I need to hear if I was in the circumstance that this person was in, good or bad? It's like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, how can I love my neighbor as myself?
I think in order to love someone else, we must first love ourselves. Because how can we know what love is if we can't even love ourselves? And I think the power starts there.
And now we're full circle back to the imposter syndrome that says you'll never be good enough, you're never going to be able to achieve, you're never going to break that generational curse, whatever it is, like the things that your family, your ancestors, right, your parents, their parents, they all struggle with this one thing, whatever it was. And and it's like we've got this cloud over us and we start to see it. It's like, okay, whether it's poverty or if it's divorce, if divorce is like running rampant in your family and your parents got divorced, their parents got divorced, and it's just this constant cycle and you're trying to break it. Or whatever it is, smoking, going back to smoking or drinking or toxic relationships, like these patterns, how can we break them? And I think you're exactly right. It goes back to loving ourselves. We have to say, you know what? I'm worthy of love. I am who God says that I am. And I'm going to believe that. And I'm going to speak that. And I'm going to live that. I'm going to do that. Give me that. And I'm going to be combative. Hallelujah. I'm going to be combative against the imposter syndrome and not necessarily against people because we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We wrestle with powers, principalities, the rulers in the heavenly places that are trying to steal, kill, and destroy us. So when we really become militant and combative against the foe himself or themselves, one third of the heavenly host that was kicked out, I guess it would be themselves. When we really focus in on God, loving each other, and then focusing our combativeness, our uh, everything starts to align. There's clarity produced. God shows up in new ways, and we realize people aren't the enemy. People are trying to do the best they can. People are confused. Some are. I know I've been confused a lot. I'm a pea brain. Praise God. I'm precious. I'm valuable, but a lot of the times I don't understand. And I think there's a fine line of walking in humility and confidence. And I think knowing that is powerful. It allows God to come in and be strong in our weakness.
Yeah, and I think that is key because I mean, we were created to love and to be loved because we were created in God's sight, like God, love. The devil came here and tricked us and gave us complications. And so with those complications, we have everything trying to mix up what we were created, you know. So when we get back to, where we are at, and sometimes we can do it on our own. Sometimes we have the skills. It's like, I know what to do. Um, I have the good book. I know how to read it. I know what it says I can have. And I know what it says I am. I know what it says I can do. And some people are just like, I heard there's something that I can do, and they need complete support. And there's some people that know exactly, but then they always change. They need that extra support. And so personal development is exactly that. It brings everybody in to a more powerful connection. And so we're about to open the floor up. If anybody has any questions, um, each day or each week, we're going to be coming together and doing this again. This is going to be a weekly thing. Most of the time, you will not it will not be just me and Will talking. We're going to have special guests from time to time, and it's going to be all different topics. But whatever topic we're talking about is what we'll open the discussions up for. Today, we're opening up pretty much on anything personal development, as Will and I have been talking about personal development. This is where this podcast is going. This is what we're going to be doing with it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Will or I will call on you. If there's no questions, we'll just keep talking back and forth. This here is real. It's live, unscripted. Hey, we're just going about it as we go, right? That just makes it more real. I'd like to say welcome to the each person that's in this room. It's been a blessing. You guys are awesome. And on that note, I agree, Will. So for those that's coming back in, welcome back. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Will or I will call on you. And so I have a question for. That is actually a good question, Iron Queen. So you could be a coach in the United States. You don't have to have any degree, any certificates, anything like that. You can just say, "Hey, I'm a coach." But then you have no backing, and when somebody meets with you, they can definitely tell that you're not a coach. Okay, but you can claim anything. However, to be a real, authentic life coach, you do have training, um, and so that training does come from somewhere. And so, first of all, ICF is one of the highest credibility that monitors all coaches. And if you're in the financial world, one of the highest people in the financial world is Dave Ramsey. So you got to have your training from somewhere. And did we? Okay. We got to have our training coming from somewhere. And when you do have that training, it stands out. With myself, I do have ICF training. I have a master's with ICF. I'm an MCPC. Will and I are both Ramsey preferred coaches, so we have a lot of training with Ramsey. Nice thing with Ramsey is it's an ongoing training. They keep training us, keep us into making sure that we're at the highest levels. Matter of fact, when we don't perform, they call us and they're like, you got to step up the game, dude. So yes, you could be a coach without any kind of certificates, but it's definitely noticed. And so both Will and I do have a lot of training behind us. If anybody wants to come up to the mic and ask a question, you feel free to. Just raise your hand. If not, you can also post your question in the chat. This is live. If you go to the YouTube channel that was in the welcome message, we are live on YouTube right now. And even after today, you can still check it out. Typically speaking, we're going to be speaking a half hour on a certain topic, and then the next half hour is going to be opened up to questions. And the podcast will be an hour every single week, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Um, After all, it is the central United States. Not really, but got to try to get some laughs in here. But yeah, so I don't know why they call it Central Time because it's kind of central, but it's kind of not, right? It's kind of more east than it is west. So, good question. Very good question. Any other questions? I have a good person that's going to be in mind for next week. Just got to finish out the details. If they come, they will be so phenomenal. You guys are going to love it. You won't want to miss next week. Um, they did a speaking before. They're another coach as well. They did a speaking on persistence. So helping with persistence, that'll be a really powerful message. So while we're waiting for more lovely questions, speaking of personal development, what was the biggest development that you can think of off the top of your head, Will?
The biggest personal development. Wow. You know, when Jesus ambushed me with his love. And you know, I do say ambush. Sometimes it takes an ambushing, especially for us hard-headed people that run from everything good for us. You ever run from anything good for you? Yeah. All in the same week, I lost the truck that I was driving. I totaled it. I ran into the back of a van filled with illegal immigrants, Mexican men. They all came out. It was about 6 or 7 of them, and I totaled my truck. Their van was okay. Um, I wouldn't envy them in the court appearance because it's likely that some of them were deported, but you know they shouldn't have came here illegally. Anyway, so I lost the truck, and I lost the girl that I was with for 6 years. We were engaged. I was a real butthole back then. I still can be a butthole, but you know, after that ambushing, everything changed. Jesus has that effect. And I lost the place I was living, which was with my mom at the time. I was 18 years old. So I lost those three very significant pillars in my life: the place I was living, my transportation, and my fiance. So that's what I mean when I say God ambushed me with his love. This all happened in the same week. In the same week. So I'll never forget. I spent the first night in my car. I had a car that I had purchased from a friend's granddad for $400. Helped me a huge way. I mean, it didn't have air conditioning. The windows wouldn't roll down. That thing was toasty in mid-July. Okay, let me tell you. Uh, but it was transportation nonetheless. And so I spent like the first few nights actually in that car. I just felt like all of my value had been stripped away. And then I went to go and live with one of my friends at that time. That, if I'm honest, he was probably one of those friends that was pulling me down. But really, I was down at the bottom. We were just both at the bottom together. Uh, and I had been at the bottom. I just had it masked by these possessions and by this girl that was good for me, but I was terrible for her. I just didn't realize it. I was I was getting my value from stuff and from other people, and I was just so self focused that I couldn't, or maybe I just didn't want to. Uh, I don't think I knew how, to be honest, at the time to give, you know, emotionally, relationally. But then Jesus came, and He ambushed me with His love. So, uh, yeah, that was powerful, 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 powerful moment there. I just remember crying out for more. God, please don't leave, like more. And then He just like, get up and go serve me. You know, go love me and love uh, your fellow man and woman. It's powerful. Okay, all right, okay. And I knew like the great commandment. I knew the Bible. Like I was raised to know the Bible. I had the head knowledge. I just didn't have the heart knowledge. Well, now I had both.
Wow, that's powerful. That's off the chain right there. Um, yeah, and you know, a lot of times um, we hit that bottom, and a lot of times we have to hit below bottom in order for us to recover. A lot of people say, "Oh, you know what? I've got this. I'm good," but they don't really have it good until there is no further down they can go. And that's usually where breakthrough happens. I know with myself, um, I had to hit bottom, come back up, let me hit bottom again because I didn't know what it was like. So I had to go back up, then hit bottom again. It's like taking your head and, hitting it on the concrete or something, Just once isn't good enough. Most of us, we hit rock bottom, and that's all we need. And looks like we have a good question for you. So, how did Jesus ambush you? Um, what did you do differently?
Yeah, the Iron Queen. Love that name, by the way. Yeah, and I talked a little bit about it. I'll go into more detail. And God ambushed me by stripping the things that were giving me value away. So it forced me to, like what David said, hit rock bottom and to start looking at my life more objectively. It's like, what am I doing here? Why am I existing? Like I'm faced with my lack of a why. I'm 18. I'm not my mom's responsibility anymore. My dad's out of the state. Um, I'm now living with a high school friend, his stepdad, who, so generously offered a place just until I could get on my feet. And I'm like, wow, this just turned real fast. So that's what I meant by God ambushing me. My mom stopped enabling bad behavior for one, and my fiance did too, and she left and wrecked the truck, and then what was the third one? It's my story. I can't even remember. I was homeless, wrecked the truck, and then yeah, I lost my fiance. So those three things happened, boom, 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 all in the same week. And then God was there. He's always there. It's just a matter of where our focus is. Like, are we focused in on God? So when he ambushed me, my focus was off of my truck. Why? Because it was gone. My focus was off of my fiance. Why? Because she was gone. My focus was off of the comfortable lifestyle that my mom was giving me in her beautiful home. Why? Because she had stripped it away, and for good reason. Because I was a real butthead, uh, not respecting her rules. Right? You get it. We don't have to go into detail there. But she was more than justified. One of the best things, loving acts that my mom ever did for me was, hey, dummy, you're out of here. Go figure it out yourself. Uh, which she didn't even say that, but that's, you get the point. She was too loving for that. She loved me all the way through, and she still loves me. Uh, so I'm thankful for that. And then what did I do differently? What did I do differently? Well, I started to focus more on God. I started to read His Word more fervently. Well, really at all. I wasn't reading His Word at all until He ambushed me. I'd known about it. I was raised in church, but I stopped reading and stopped pursuing, stopped focusing on God. I don't know, 12, 13 years old. There was a gap there, from 12 to 18. I just stopped focusing. Who cares about what God, said? I'd used Him as a crutch or as a shield or something like that in social situations. But, you know, when I was alone, what was I doing? It wasn't God, right? It wasn't God. I was not a man of integrity. Well, that changed, and I started to become a man of integrity by worshiping God, by praying to Him, both individually, like alone with Him, and with other believers, and reading His Word, both alone and with other believers. Same goes with worship. Uh, and the more I really, the more we pushed into that, It's almost like being unplugged from the Matrix. I mean, if you guys have ever watched the movie The Matrix with Neo and Morpheus, it's another good hero and guide illustration. We talked about Star Wars and Yoda and Luke Skywalker. Well, this is another one of those. It's like Morpheus is the guide. He's selfless. He's like sacrificing himself to the nth degree. And Neo is there. He's the hero. And it's like, he's come to save the day type of thing. But he can't do it without his guide. He can't do it without Morpheus. So salvation for me was like getting unplugged from the matrix. It's like we're going through these little meaningless rituals, traditions, things we've learned subconsciously for years. And God had a way of just stripping it all and saying, what really matters? Why are you doing everything you're doing? Does it resemble me, and loving others? Because if it doesn't, we need to rethink that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you gave brought up a good point. You had a lot of materialistic things, and this world likes to put all that on you. Oh, you need a car, you need this, you need that, and you got to have a Mercedes Benz or a Bentley, or you got to have a good car, right? I call that fake rich because most of the people that have the really nice things, the really nice cars, they're not really rich. They can't afford it. They have it all on credit. They have it all on loans. The real rich people that can afford it, they have a couple good cars, but the cars they're driving around in are Hondas, Honda Pilots, Toyotas. They're driving around with decent cars, that gets them from A to B. Um, those are the real rich because they know how to hold on and how to invest their money instead of blowing it on things that an image. I have these things just to make me look good. And so that's why I call it materialistic things are like your fake rich. You know, I got to have these to make me look good. So that you brought up a very good point. I really love that. And so there's another good question. The people that you went into at the beginning were they Christians? So I'm going to take that a step further and say, not only were they Christians, or were they ones that led you to, or if I remember you correctly, wasn't that your friend that was on the same level as you at the time when you hit the rock bottom?
Yeah, the people that took me in that did a really good Christian-like act. It was by God's sovereignty that I wasn't, and their by God's sovereignty and their free will, their act of generosity and charity, because I wasn't paying rent, I couldn't, I didn't have any money. But were they Christians? No, they were not. They were not Christians, and I wasn't either. I would have told you that I was, and that's the scary part. That's the scary part. Um, I experienced God's love for me in a very real way. Transformation, regeneration in my heart. God removed my stony heart, gave me a heart of flesh. Right there, I was on my knees, bawling like a baby, just crying out to God, "Please, Daddy, more, more. I want more of you." Like everything that I had been chasing, the image that I was portraying, the material stuff, it didn't come close. It paled in comparison to what I was feeling in this moment. God Himself. And He captivated me. And from that moment on, there's been nothing. Like I've done things. I've you know backslidden in things, but there has been nothing that has captivated me like Him. I've always known that there's a God-shaped hole, like we've all heard, in our chests, and He's the only one that can even come close to filling it. So it's like, do I want to waste my time trying to fill it with things that are just going to leave me wanting, or am I going to let Him fill it? Ooh, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that I answered the question. I did. Cool, really cool.
Yeah, that's powerful. You bring up a good point. Um, Not all the time is somebody a Christian, but they can still do Christian things. There was this one lady, she was a widow, and she was like needing things. Church would give her food, stuff like that. And she would go onto her porch, yell out whatever she needed from God, just kind of like, "Come on, God, where are you? Hello, I'm down here." And, one day she yelled out, "I need food. Come on. I'm desperately in need of food." And, there's that Bible verse that says, God knows what you need. Don't worry about it. You know, doesn't he clothe the lilies of the grass? How much more are you than them? Doesn't he feed the birds? How much more valuable are you than them? And her neighbor yelled at her, "God ain't going to help you. God ain't going to give you nothing. You're going to starve." And she kept going onto her porch, praising God for food. And this guy got tired of it. So one day, he bought a whole bunch of food and put it on her front porch. When she came out, she praised God. "Thank you, Father, for the food I'm in so desperate need of." And she yelled, "You fool! God didn't give you that. I got it for you. See, your God isn't real." And so she started praising God. "Thank you, Father, for not only feeding me, but using the devil to feed me." So it really makes me think, because sometimes the devil provides for us even though he doesn't even realize it. So I love that, how you said that. um,
Yeah, and much like gang family, right? Like the gangs, they prey on the children. They get these children, and they use terminology like family, um, and you mentioned like the devil providing for us. It's like they'll provide for them. They'll give them jobs to do, pay them money, make them feel included, make us feel included. And for all of us who have had that experience, I personally haven't, but I know that some of my friends have. And there's always that ulterior motive that our enemy has. It's like, yeah, he's going to provide for us, but he wants us to do his dirty bidding so that we're the ones that are going to be sitting in the back of the cop car, right, and going and having charges. And then, you hear all these like crazy excuses. It's like, well, you're a minor. All they can do is slap you on your wrist. And they're stealing your future away, these gang leaders. And I feel like that they are getting that from the enemy himself. Like that's how he operates. He'll provide for you. He'll make you feel included. He'll kind of lead you on. He'll kind of he'll tie a carrot right over your head and just kind of hang it there, and you'll never really obtain, but you'll feel like you're doing a lot of work because you are. Uh, but there's never any real genuine acceptance or love or appreciation. I think what ends up happening is people lose all hope in humanity. It's really sad. But then, we have that experience with God Almighty there on our knees, and finally we feel genuine love, genuine charity, genuine acceptance, and it changes everything. Yeah. Well, that's about all the time that I have. I have had so much fun with you, David, and with the rest of you guys. Like, I'm looking forward to next week. So I appreciate you guys having me. I'm humbled to be a part of this, and looking forward to uh, some of you guys kind of weighing in and sharing your stories and sharpening and consoling us as well. Yeah.
Well, yes, and thank you everybody for coming. We're going to stay open, but we will come off live. This recording will also be on Facebook. It'll be on Will's Facebook page as well as the YouTube page. And then live, you'll be able to see it next week. Now, live today, we had three people check out the live channel. And so it's always good to be here in person. To come here in person, you will come to Pal Talk. You go under the category of the groups and go down to Christian and then look for the room Real Talk at the round table. And we will be here every week. This will also be live on YouTube. And afterwards, will also be on Will's Facebook and my YouTube. And thank you all. And I will see you guys next time.